The Miami Hurricanes now have 13 commitments. Last night, Miami picked up a verbal for number 13 with cornerback Ryan Mack, St. Thomas Aquinas, and that is a good start to the week. Hoping to hear some more good news this week, but as I always say on this podcast, you never know with high school football players. There's a lot of chances for these young men to go to different places, to delay decisions, etc. But I do think there's a chance they could get more good news this week. Long term, looking at things over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I think Miami's still going to get a handful more. I projected, I think it was a day or two ago, 6 between this point and the end of the month of July. Going to sit with that. We're one into that with Mack being added. Hopefully, a couple more key players on defense. I believe firmly, this is just me, that Miami needs a lot more depth on defense. Straight up the middle in particular, defensive tackle, and I will get to that. That's the main point of this show in just a little bit. But here's the other thing. Miami needs to be able to rotate guys in, especially in the South Florida heat, over and over and over again, and do so without worrying that there's much of it, or even really any drop off. And that's where they're trying to get. Mario Cristobal and his staff know that Miami's not there right now. They need more talent. And last year, the bugaboo was also the injuries. That was one of the craziest seasons I've ever seen in terms of just not having good luck with the injury front. Now, the other point is this. Miami also needs a few more instant impact guys. Most of those players, Miami or otherwise, make decisions later in the year. And when I mean decisions, I'm talking about final. I don't care leans, verbal commitments, still taking visits, shut it down, I'm done decisions. There's very few of those with the top 50 kids that are taking a bunch of June visits. Either they committed real early and they're done, or they take visits in the summer and they make a decision later. Kids are just totally different. So as an example, JoJo Trader, I know I mentioned this recently. I talked to him, Miami's camp. He visits, according to him, the following 5, possibly 6 schools in the fall when his mom can go with him to accommodate her schedule. Miami, Florida, Florida State, Ohio State, and Georgia, possibly Penn State. He's just an example and a microcosm of what 4- and 5-star kids do. Their time is on their side. Schools don't like it. I can guarantee you that. I know that firsthand. They don't have anything they can do about it. This is the one time that recruits truly have the upper hand and have 100% of the leverage. Colleges, to get into that playoff, need elite players. Therefore, elite players get to set their own timeline. I don't think there's going to be any movement with Jeremiah Smith or anybody like Aiden Breland, etc., that's of note anytime soon. Justin Scott, I don't expect him to go to Miami. I think things are trending pretty heavily towards the north with him. But all of that being said, just keep in mind that some of the kids that are coming up are program fits, guys that can really run. And some of the kids I expect him to get are also kids that fit positions of need. So now the other kid I want to talk about, and I'm going to share my screen here in just a minute, is a defensive tackle. Athletic, has size, has feet, lateral movement, all the skills you're looking for. Big Artavius. He's from Bluntstown, Florida. It's in the Panhandle, small school, and it is pretty comical to watch him running through, around, over, doing pretty much whatever he wants, but doing it as a tight end, even literally. He's a kid that catches the football naturally, but he's going to end up being a 300-pound defensive tackle at the college football level, and I think he has an NFL future if he can stay healthy. Cannot teach his feet. I don't care his 1A schedule, whatever it is, 1, 2A schools, don't care. The film does not lie. They say it in the NFL all the time, and it's just a common theme. The eye in the sky does not lie. When you watch his film, it pops off. It's not very difficult to see. So with that, let's share a little of this and talk about Artavius Jones. This is a young man that is a lot of fun for me. And to be honest with you, when you see him, the number one thing is just the ability to move laterally. Check out his ability to get out at space right there. I mean, he moves like he's 230. I'm not exactly sure what Artavius weighed last year, but this is a kid that's getting recruited by a ton of schools now. It looks like UCF and Miami are up there. I'm surprised at Florida State. I haven't heard more. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the boat on this, but to my knowledge, he's not going to end up there. That would be the logical choice. He's like an hour from their campus, give or take. Big time player, though. And look at that footwork for a kid his size. It's ridiculous. This is another good example of him just being an effort guy. He doesn't get the ball immediately, but he plays it out like he's going to block, goes out in the flat. And then this is more his future. He's in a zero technique right there. Stops his feet. What a great play. Makes the quarterback miss initially. Athlete, man. This is an athlete. I know he's a defensive lineman, but he is an athlete. On that play, chases laterally, makes it happen. Good first step. Could have used his hands a little better to push, but he's so strong it didn't even matter. When you can dislodge another man that easily, it kind of is laughable. I know that I can't grade him completely on some of the comp he's taken, but I mean, he's just murdering guys. This is the kind of player Miami needs. They need at least 2 bigger athletic defensive tackles in this class. If they get the big fella, that would be a help. I messaged with him yesterday. He's decided that he's done with visits. I think he'll make a decision sometime in the next month, maybe even the next week or two. And if that is the case, look for him to end up as a part of the Canes, in my opinion. That's just the last visit. I'll go with the team that got the last visit when a kid decides suddenly he's going to announce, and Miami got the last one. So I'm just going to go with that. I don't have any other intel. I'm not saying I've heard anything different, but Miami appears to be trending with him. One last play after this. Watch his ability to move his feet. He stays on that guy. That's just a great sign of his athleticism. All right, now, final point here. This is something you need to keep in mind. Miami's at 13 commitments. There is no more dead set number. I didn't even realize this until recently, and I should have announced this. My apologies on how many kids you can take. Used to be 25 in a high school class, and then kids who were gray shirted, they would move them back to the other class if they took under 25. Like they would do different things with numbers. Now it doesn't matter. I'm not sure how many kids Miami plans to take, but because of the transfer portal, it's always flexible anyway. Cristobal and his staff are always on the lookout anyhow, but now you really have to be, and with 25 kids not being a limit, I mean, if they could, I think they would take 3 D tackles, Jones obviously being one as an example, and they would go from there. Hopefully Miami can get at least 2 and maybe even 3, but as things unwind during this next season, and kids will emerge like this kid did during his junior season, maybe there's 1 or 2 more kids in South Florida Miami comes up with. That's kind of my final thought. South Florida's famous for that. Kids that late bloomers, kids kind of getting on track to a certain sense. Barney, the kid down at Palmetto, hasn't gotten the recruiting attention he should. I think he'll eventually end up at Miami. He was leaning to Nebraska, but I'll take Miami for a kid from the public league when they really go after him every time. And he's 20 minutes from campus, give or take. So Barney's a really good player. He's a receiver. All these guys that they're going up against, they might see somebody else. We're getting going into that realm where you're waiting on the 5-star kids, but you might see somebody else you like too during the season. It's going to be kind of fun to check that out, especially since you don't have to take 25 or less. So anyway, everybody, please like this podcast. Please hit that notification, subscribe, and above all else, comment. I'm curious what you think of Miami's recruiting efforts so far on All Hurricanes, the site that I operate for Fan Nation. I'm talking a lot about the kids they've got coming back right now on campus. I'm doing a Canes countdown. I'm down to 19, and it's the top players. Talk a little bit about the transfer portal today. So there's all kinds of things to talk about. You can talk about it here. You can find us at All Hurricanes on Twitter, or me. There's my Twitter account at FB Scout. Please be safe and have a great day.